Preet Bharara, and I'm the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York. Today we announced charges in what may be the largest international money laundering case ever brought by the United States. Specifically, we unsealed charges against Liberty Reserve and 7 of its principals and employees, who for years have operated one of the world's most widely used digital currencies. But as alleged, the only liberty that Liberty Reserve gave many of its users was the freedom to commit crimes, as it became a popular hub for fraudsters, hackers, and traffickers. The global enforcement action that we announced today is an important step towards reining in the Wild West of illicit internet banking. As detailed in the indictment, Liberty Reserve was intentionally created and structured to facilitate criminal activity. It was essentially a black market bank. As alleged, Liberty Reserve deliberately operated in a way to attract and aid criminals who wished to use digital currency to break the law and to launder the proceeds of their crimes. Serious crimes, including credit card fraud, identity theft, investment fraud, computer hacking, child pornography, and even narcotics trafficking. All told, Liberty Reserve allegedly processed 55 million separate financial transactions and laundered a staggering $6 billion in criminal proceeds. We have indicted Liberty Reserve itself because, as alleged, its entire existence was based on a criminal business model. In addition, we have charged 7 individuals, 5 of whom were arrested this past Friday. They are Arthur Budofsky, the principal founder of Liberty Reserve, who was arrested in Spain; Vladimir Katz, a co-founder of Liberty Reserve, who was arrested in New York; Azzedine El Amin, a manager of Liberty Reserve's financial accounts, who was arrested in Spain; Mark Marmalev, who helped design and maintain Liberty Reserve's technological infrastructure and who was arrested in New York; Maxim Chukarev, who also helped manage Liberty Reserve's technological infrastructure and who was arrested in Costa Rica. 2 other defendants, Messrs. Abdelghani and Jimenez, remain at large in Costa Rica. In addition to bringing criminal charges, today we have also effectively shut down Liberty Reserve by seizing its domain name as well as its computer servers in Sweden, Switzerland, and Costa Rica. We have also seized $25 million and counting of Liberty Reserve funds, and we have so far restrained or seized a total of 45 bank accounts around the world. So what is or was Liberty Reserve? As described in our papers, it was a company incorporated in Costa Rica which operated a popular digital currency. As alleged, Liberty Reserve quickly became a financial hub of the cybercrime world, facilitating all manner of online crimes, from identity theft to child pornography, and over time, it became the bank of choice for the criminal underworld. By providing layers of anonymity, the company allowed users to engage in criminal transactions with an impunity that would have been impossible in a legitimate financial system. As described in the indictment, the scope of the defendant's alleged unlawful conduct is truly staggering. With over 1 million users worldwide, including 200,000 in the United States, Liberty Reserve grew to process annually more than 12 million financial transactions with a combined value of over $1.4 billion.
Where those engaged in all forms of illegal activity are gravitating to digital currency alternatives as a means to move, conceal, and enjoy their ill-gotten gains. If Al Capone were alive today, this is how he would be hiding his money. Capitalizing on this emerging demand to cyber launder, it is alleged that Liberty Reserve moves staggering amounts of illegal funds. They thought they were electronically incognito, traceless to law enforcement.
How does this relate to Bitcoin, and why is the neighborhood judge reacting to the papers?
I'm not going to talk about any other virtual currency system, as I said, and the action we brought today relates only to Liberty Reserve and no other system. And I reiterate the words of the Undersecretary that by this action, we're not taking any position on virtual currency generally, and we're not taking any position with respect to any particular other company that engages in something that may look on the surface like something that Liberty Reserve was doing. With respect to the redaction, it is the unfortunate case that there are individuals who believe in personal retaliation in the cyber world, and so a precaution was taken there.
Welcome to the Crypto Teacher. And guys, I come back with that second video just to make you think. And of course, right now, today is the anniversary of the Genesis block of Bitcoin, the actual 12th anniversary. But guys, I like to take you back. And I'm going to bring up the name that very few people talk about, and that's Liberty Reserve. Now, with Liberty Reserve, it was an interesting article that I found on Reddit. It says Liberty Reserve closure is positive for Bitcoin. Liberty Reserve closure could accelerate the adoption of Bitcoin because Liberty Reserve and Bitcoin have been competing for the same users. Liberty Reserve disappearing is natural selection. Centralized virtual currencies have limited lifespans always. I'm very sorry for everyone who lost access to money they had in Liberty Reserve, but they are now left scratching their heads wondering what the next move is. There is really only one answer, and that is Bitcoin. And of course, he go on to say that Bitcoin, he's definitely a bull on Bitcoin. And since the close of Liberty Reserve, Bitcoin has been heading up. But guys, we got to take you back to Liberty Reserve. I did a video on it several times. But they were already moving billions of dollars, guys. The technology was working. We know the same places and the protocol are almost exactly the same as Ripple. We understand that. We also know Liberty Reserve dates back to 2006 in Costa Rica. But you also can bring them all the way back to 2001. But guys, do not forget when it comes to the New World Order, everything is planned out. Bitcoin is not having any issues. Nobody can bring it down, even though we know people still use Bitcoin for illegal items also. Remember, that's all we ever hear about. Bitcoin being used for illicit activities, but we don't see anybody taking them down. So we know for a fact the government is what? Controlling it. But the fact is that also, guys, we have a little message there when it comes to Satoshi. Now, what Satoshi puts in their Time magazine, banks get bailed out. But guys, who's in control of Bitcoin? That's right, the central banks. They took control of it, guys. So I just want to make sure we understand that, especially for my newbies that are coming in. Guys, look at it as an investment. That means 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Because we know when it comes to the actual central banks, the Rothschilds, guys, they control it all. Don't ever forget that. Enjoy the rest of the video.
This is what was going to change the world? Let me fill you in on what happened while you were gone. Transaction fees have risen because of the block size. The block size is 1 megabyte currently and only allows for a few transactions per second to take place. Many more happen than this, so the people who pay the highest fee get to go first in line. On December 12, 2017, at the time I'm recording this video, the average transaction fee today was $24.40. This problem only gets worse with time and as adoption spreads. Instead of raising the block size again, the development team has decided to go for a second layer called the Lightning Network. It promises instant transactions, super low fees, and this is the basics of how it works. Let's say me and you transact regularly, so we open a channel for 2 Bitcoins. I send a Bitcoin and you send a Bitcoin to a multi-signature address, where it's temporarily locked away. Now we are free to trade 2 Bitcoins back and forth with no fees, as long as we both sign each transaction. This is because the actual Bitcoin was never moved. We are essentially trading for the rights of the coin, off-chain, similar to an IOU. Hubs will naturally occur. A Lightning Hub is a node with enough channels open and enough liquidity available that by connecting them, you limit the amount of channels you need to personally open, never have to worry about their balance, and reduce the amount of hops and fees required to make transactions. Unlike miners, who don't actually transfer value, These hubs will likely be classified as third-party settlement organizations, being subject to heavy financial regulation laws such as KYC and AML. Also, unlike on-chain transactions, there is a chance of theft in this system. If another party attempts to broadcast a channel in an old state, they can try to steal your Bitcoin if you can't catch them in time. For this, you will either need to run a full Bitcoin node that will always be online to monitor the transactions yourself, or hire a third-party service to do this on your behalf. So, the Lightning hubs will require to be set up for financial regulation and reporting laws, require massive amounts of liquidity to keep multiple well-funded open channels, offer fraud departments to watch the blockchain constantly and prevent theft, all while taking small fees for every transaction you route through them. Does this system sound familiar? Just replace the term open channel with checking account. These Lightning Network hubs will be ran by the same financial institutions the Bitcoin was made to challenge. The banks aren't fighting Bitcoin because Bitcoin will be the new banking system. Bitcoin needed no middleman. There was no fraud to detect, no permission to give, no transaction to reverse, no fees to collect. So it had to be broken to need them. And the worst part is, you won't have a choice. Either give up your freedom and use the Lightning Network, or be subject to double or even triple-digit ever-increasing fees for every move you make on the blockchain. The truth is, the 1 megabyte blocks restricting Bitcoin are purposely kept there by the developers. The absurdly high fees and long waits create a demand for a solution, and the solution they give us is the banking industry. The block size restriction was placed as a temporary safeguard by Bitcoin's creator, Satoshi Nakamoto. As soon as the blocks were close to being full, it was to be raised again. Satoshi mysteriously left the project in 2010, but before he did, he left instructions on how to raise the block size and left Gavin Anderson in charge of the project. When Satoshi left, institutional money started to make its way in and take control, and a company, Blockstream, emerged. Over time, it happened that a large portion of the development team was part of or hired by this company, and when it came time for another block size increase, there was a portion of the developers that thought this was a bad idea. This just so happened to be the same group of developers that worked for Blockstream.
Our flagship products include Liquid. It's an inter-exchange settlement network. So what it does is it lets you move funds very quickly between different crypto exchanges or trading desks or financial institutions. And this is a sidechain. So Blockstream was founded in 2014 to pioneer sidechain development and R&D. You can also issue assets in Liquid, which is really interesting. And we also have Blockstream Green, which is a non-custodial multi-sig wallet that lets you control spending, velocity limits, and such. It's also compatible with some of the more popular hardware wallets, so it's a really good solution if you're taking your Bitcoins out on the go. We have Element as well, which is a blockchain platform. It's where we do most of our R&D. So things like SegWit, we first R&D'd them and put them into Elements. And confidential assets, confidential transactions, those all went to Elements first, and then we eventually released it in Liquid in a production environment. So Blockstream Satellite is probably one of our more interesting things out there. So this is a satellite service. So it's broadcasting the Bitcoin blockchain all around the world. We're using 4 geosynchronous satellites. They're about 30,000 kilometers out in orbit. And they're high-powered satellites. So what that lets us to do is broadcast to users on the ground with smaller home TV-sized dishes. So this helps add redundancy to the Bitcoin blockchain. So in the event of a network partition, you still don't have to have a network split as long as one person in a country is running this dish and getting the blocks. And finally, we have the cryptocurrency data feed, which is a partnership with ICE. So ICE is the owner of the New York Stock Exchange and Bakkt. So what we're doing is we're collecting and scraping data from all the crypto exchanges and creating this crypto feed that is sold to institutional Wall Street investors in terms of miners and hashing power. I'll just go quickly through this part. So we have a lot of on-chain technology improvements, including Taproot, Schnorr. These are just ways to scale up Bitcoin and make it more extendable. Taproot opens the door for Bitcoin smart contracts. We have LRay, which is making broadcasting transactions better. So right now, when you're broadcasting transactions and data on network, it's not that efficient. There's a lot of extra gossip. And LRay kind of pares that down and makes it easier and more lightweight. We also have SIG hash no input, which is required for a Lightning upgrade called L2. So what is the Lightning Network? I think this is an important thing. A lot of people don't talk about Lightning Network. Koji, right before on the panel, did mention it, but I think this doesn't get as much attention as it should. So Lightning Network is built on top of Bitcoin. It is a protocol, so Bitcoin itself is a protocol. Lightning is a protocol as well. It's a decentralized network enabling instant private Bitcoin micropayments. So Lightning is built for paying for coffee and small transactions, or even nano transactions between machines. Transactions are cryptographically irrevocable, and everything is settled on the main Bitcoin blockchain at the end between two parties. And then once you've opened up the channel, then you can transact as many times as you want, and it is privacy preserving because your transactions are only broadcast to the party that you're transacting with versus a main chain transaction where you're broadcasting everything to everyone. So if I do a main chain transaction for Bitcoin, everybody has to receive that transaction. And then ultimately, when the channel is closed, you close it out and you make a final transaction on the Bitcoin blockchain to kind of settle. And an example I like to use for Lightning Network is it's kind of like a bar tab. If you go to a bar and you want to have drinks, you don't go and pay every single drink. You open up a tab, you give them your card, and you drink all night, and then when you're done, you say, okay, I'm done, you sign off, and you say, I paid. Project right away. So Blockstream Satellite is a free service. Everyone can just put up a dish for $100 and start receiving, and it's not like every one person has to buy their own dish. You can share one with everybody. So say you're a village in Africa or something, you could have one dish shared by hundreds of people. But the monetization aspect of it would be services that we offer on top. We're building a platform where you can also broadcast your data over the satellite service, and of course you'd pay with Bitcoin. So you could be another chain, another company, and you want to also have that redundancy. Then you would use our platform and API and broadcast your blocks as well, and then you would also have that redundancy.